We are all here to sharpen our awareness, to master our awareness. To witness our breath is simply to sharpen our awareness. When we drift away with thoughts, it's about practicing our awareness to become aware that I'm having a thought. Let us become masters of awareness. Let us master in thinking. An aware thinking. A state of complete presence, complete awareness. With regular practice of meditation, we are regularly practicing awareness. When we observe our breath, we are practicing awareness. When we witness every experience, we are practicing awareness. Let us all practice awareness, awareness of thoughts, awareness of the breath, normal, natural breath. Last 1 minute. Slowly bring back your awareness. Become aware of your surroundings, your physical body. Twenty seconds. Ten seconds. Five, four, three, two, one, and zero. You may now place your hands over your eyes, or you may choose to stay back with your eyes closed as we listen about Lahiri Mahasaya. Lahiri Mahasaya. Shyama Charan Lahiri was born on 30th September 1828 in a village Ghurni to parents Gaur Mohan and Mukteshi Devi. Lahiri learnt English, Bengali, Hindi, and Urdu besides Persian, Sanskrit, Vedas, and Upanishads. He married in the year 1846 at the age of 18. Until the age of 33, Lahiri lived an ordinary worldly life as a householder. Thereafter, he met his Gurudev Mahavatar Babaji on the Drongiri mountains in Himalayas. By the grace of Babaji, he entered the domain of spirituality, by which he easily ascended the gradual steps of yoga sadhana. Lahiri Mahasaya set an example for mankind that practice of sadhana with strong determination can result in spiritual attainment. Let us go now more into details. On the morning of Tuesday, September 30th, the year 1828, this divine child caused his descent at village Gurni. His parents being Gaur Mohan Lahiri and Muktakeshi Devi, second wife of Gaur Mohan. By his first wife, Gaur Mohan had two sons, Chandrakanta and Sharada Prasad, and a daughter, Swarnamayi. His first wife expired in the course of a pilgrimage. Then Gaur Mohan married for the second time. 5 years after the advent of Shyamacharan, Muktakeshi Devi gave birth to a daughter named Sulakshana. Thus, Gaur Mohan had 3 sons and 2 daughters. Gaur Mohan was a virtuous, devout, and religious person. He used to engage himself performing puja, reading the Shastras, and discussing religious facts. He was also an earnest devotee of yoga sadhana. He had sincere regard for all gods and goddesses. Muktakeshi Devi too used to daily worship the household deity Shiva with sincere devotion. Muktakeshi Devi was extremely compassionate. The dear child of Muktakeshi Devi grew up gradually. He was affectionately named Shamacharan by everyone. In those days, there was a general practice of naming children after gods and goddesses. It would serve the purpose of calling the children as well as remembering God. Sometimes Muktakeshi Devi would lull the child to sleep or sometimes take him to the Shiva temple, place him beside her, and worship Shiva with rapt attention. The child would also be keeping his eyes closed, be seated like Shiva. Again, she would sometimes accomplish her tasks by making the child sit on sandy banks of the river. The child would smear sand all over his body and, assuming the posture of Shiva, sit down with closed eyes. Childish impudence was rarely found in this divine child. Instead, he could be seen wandering in the realm of thoughts stoically, as though he wanted to establish a union with the infinite. By observing the attitude and behavior of this child, many guessed that he was not an ordinary child. One day, Muktakeshi Devi was absorbed in deep meditation of Shiva with the child seated beside her. The child also was sitting with closed eyes, emulating his mother. Suddenly, a handsome, large-built sannyasi with matted hair appeared before the temple and addressed Muktakeshi Devi as mother. She became unnerved and lifted the child on her lap. The sannyasi said, "Mother, don't be afraid. I am a sannyasi. There is nothing to be afraid of me." The sannyasi stated, "That son of yours is not an ordinary human child. It is I who have sent him to this earth to show the esoteric path of sadhana to countless people distressed with the worries and woes of family life. This child himself will maintain a family existence and attract others to practice yoga sadhana. Mother, you have nothing to fear. I shall constantly keep a watch upon him like a shadow." After this, the sannyasi departed with gentle steps. Gaur Mohan went to Kashi with his sons and daughters by a long water route. There, his eldest son, Chandrakanta, had purchased a house in advance at Simon Chauhata, an area of Madanpura. Everyone then started residing in this house. When Shamacharan completed 5 years of age, Gaur Mohan began to consider about the education of his son. Being a scholar himself, he could appreciate the value of education. In those days, people with an English education could easily acquire jobs. Thus, he had no conservatism for languages. For whatever reason it might be, to keep in accordance with the spirit of the age, he admitted his son to Joy Narayan English School at Gurureshwar locality established by Raja Rai Narayan Gosal of Bhukhailas. After this, at the age of 12, Shamcharan was admitted to an English medium school, which was branch of Government Sanskrit College. Later, this government English school was converted into a college, and he had studied here for a period of 8 years till 1848. Then he was 20 years old. Besides English, Bengali, Hindi, and Urdu, he learned Persian also. In addition to this, he studied Sanskrit, the Vedas, Upanishads, and other scriptural texts from his teacher, a Maharashtrian Pandit named Nagvatta, who was well versed in the scriptures. Sham Charan married in the year 1846 at the age of 18 when he was a college student. Amongst, amongst the Bengalis like Gaur Mohan, who settled in Kashi, Pandit Vakaspati Dev Narayan Sanyal Mahasaya of Belur in Howrah district of West Bengal was one of them. He had a cordial relationship with Gaur Mohan. It can be heard that the great Tailanga Swami would accept alms only from the house of Dev Narayan. Vakaspati Mahashaya lived in the ward of Kalishpura near Gaur Mohan's residence. For this reason, he would occasionally come to Gaur Mohan's house and discuss the Shastras with him. Vakaspati Mahasaya was a widower. He reared his 3 sons and only daughter, Kashimani, on his own. Kashimani used to visit Gaur Mohan's residence along with her father and play there. The women folk of the house would jokingly ask her, "Whom will you marry?" The child used to then point at the handsome Shamacharan. Gaur Mohan gave in marriage to his son, Shamcharan, 9 years old, Kashimani. Shamcharan possessed a good health. He practiced a few physical exercises and was an expert swimmer. He was industrious and brave by nature. He never used to waste time gossiping with those of the same age. He never committed any unjust action and had a keen sense of judgment in all respects. In the year 1851, at almost 23 years of age, Shamcharan was appointed as a clerk in the Public Works Department, Military Engineering Works of Ghazipur. Later, he had to work at different locations like Mirzapur, Buxar, Katwa, Gorakhpur, Dhanapur, Raniket, Kashi, etc. on transfer. At the end of his service period, he was promoted to the post of Barak Master. During his service at Ghazipur, his salary was not enough. For this reason, he earned an extra amount by teaching Hindi and Urdu to a few English army officers, retained this small income for his personal expenditure, and sent his salary to Kashi for household expenditure. In the year 1852, the Ghazipur office being shifted to Kashi, he arrived here on transfer. On 31st May of that year, his father departed for his heavenly abode. After his father's demise, a family dispute ensued with his brothers. Peace-loving and religious-minded Shamcharan always avoided discord. In the year 1863, a long period after his marriage, his eldest son, Tinkari Lahiri Mahasaya, was born on the holy birthday of Bhagavan Jagannath. Kashimani Devi was an extremely quiet, compassionate, and accomplished housewife. Despite the acute financial stringency, she managed the household affairs with supreme patience. By virtue of her judiciousness and sound domestic management, she saved from her husband's petty income, from which Shamcharan purchased a house at Gurareshwar in the year 1864 and thereafter started residing there. Here, on the day of the car festival in the year 1865, their youngest son, Dukari Lahiri Mahashaya, was born. In this very house, their eldest daughter, Harimati, second daughter, Hari Kamini, and the youngest daughter, Hari Mohini, were born respectively in the years 1868, 1870, and 1873. Shamcharan effected his mortal existence in this house. After being transferred to a few places, Shyamacharan was posted at Dhanapur office. While staying here, he engrossed himself in austere sadhana. At this time, he maintained such a secrecy that none knew about his sadhana. Guru imparted yoga sadhana became his mainstay. By the grace of Babaji Maharaj, he entered the domain of spirituality by which he easily ascended the gradual steps of yoga sadhana. After completing his daily official task, he engaged himself in deep sadhana in seclusion. During this period, he made exemplary progress in yoga sadhana. The taciturn yet affable Shamacharan was industrious. He would never advocate idleness. It is for this reason the austere practice of yoga sadhana could not deter him. From this period onwards, Shamacharan would constantly remain absorbed in self-introspection, and a stoical attitude towards all aspects could be thus noticed. Because of this, his boss would affectionately call this Bengali gentleman Pagla Babu. One day, Shamcharan found his boss much depressed, and asking him the reason for this, learned that the boss' wife was suffering from such a serious illness that her life was endangered. The boss was extremely anxious because he did not receive any news for a few days. Compassion arose in Shamacharan. His benevolence brought about its outpourings. He assured his boss that he would, in a short while, bring the news of his wife. The boss had been residing in India for a long time. He had heard many tales of supernatural powers of the Indian yogis, yet credence refused to come easily in an incredulous mind. So he gazed helplessly at Shamacharan. Shamacharan entered a solitary room of the office and absorbed himself in dhyana. After some time, he came out from the room, informed his wife that his wife was improving and that that her letter was on its way. He also apprised him the contents of the letter. After a few days, the letter duly arrived, and noting a similarity in the contents as stated by Shamacharan, he was astounded. After a few months, his wife arrived at Danapura from England. Many a time, English women would frequent the offices of their husbands. One day, she came to her husband's office along with him. Suddenly seeing Shamacharan, she recognized him and was amazed. She told her husband that during her illness, this sublime soul had appeared by her bedside, and it was by his grace that she was freed from his afflictions. From this time, he commenced imparting initiation in society. A florist would sell flowers at the entrance of Kedareshwar temple. He was the first disciple in society to receive initiation from Shamacharan. When flowers bloom, bees swarm in search of honey. Similarly, people seeking salvation gradually swarmed to him. Though he preferred to remain unobtrusive, his renown as a yogic preceptor gradually efflourished. Husband's immensity of progress in his yoga sadhana was unknown to Kashimani Devi. One midnight, on awakening from her sleep, she could not find her husband. So she lit a lamp and, searching for him, found him seated in Padmasana in levitation in a corner of a room. By observing this extra mundane yogic wealth of her husband, tears streamed down Kashimani Devi. She begged pardon with folded hands because many a time unknowingly she had been wrongful towards him. After some time, when Shamacharan reverted from the transcendental state, Kashimani Devi begged apology and prayed for yogic initiation. The following day, she was initiated into yoga. Her father was a renowned Pandit, and because of this, since childhood, she had a habit of worshipping idols. After initiation, she practiced yoga sadhana. Idol worship was never practiced by Shamacharan. He would remark that the basis of religion is yoga. Self-realization is not possible without yoga sadhana. Without self-realization, soul consciousness is not possible. And without soul consciousness, salvation cannot be attained. Let's reread these things. Idol worship was never practiced by Shamacharan. He would remark that the basic basis of religion is yoga. Self-realization is not possible without yoga sadhana. Without self-realization, soul consciousness is not possible. Without soul consciousness, salvation cannot be attained. Vakaspati Devanarayan Mahasaya, aged father-in-law of Shamcharan, was a devout, renewed Pandit. Being attracted by the remarkable yogic attainment of Shamacharan, he also obtained initiation from him. Since then, he never addressed him as son-in-law. Affectionately, he used to call him Yogi Raj. From then, Shamcharan gradually came to be known as Yogi Raj. Yogi Raj used to say that it is imperative for everyone to still the mind. If the mind cannot be stilled, sadhana cannot be practiced. The worldly actions also cannot be accomplished in an immaculate manner. Since the breathing motion is external, the mind is externally oriented. When the breathing motion becomes internal through yoga action, the mind becomes internally oriented and still. Through the still mind, the subtlest of the subtle, eternal existence of God can be ascertained. It is absolutely imperative to keep the mind under control rather than be controlled by the mind. Everything pivots around the mind. Without yoga action, the mind cannot be kept under self-control. Yogi Raj would attire himself in a dhoti, waistcoat, and Punjabi. He would wear canvas shoes outside and wooden sandals at home. He never took any breakfast. However, in the morning, he would take a little amount of ghee and sugar. For lunch, he would take rice with vegetables. He was a strict vegetarian. He would drink great quantities of milk. Yogi Raj was averse to the promulgation of his tenets to the insincere. He never wanted anybody to take a photograph of him. Once his devotees had decided to take a snap of him and thereby invited Gangadhar De, a skilled photographer and devotee of Yogi Raj. After this, they prayed for his consent. Yogi Raj remarked, "There is no need to take a photograph. If a photograph is taken, then in future, all will abandon sadhana and start worshipping the photograph." You see what a beautiful statements he had said. There is no need to take a photograph. If a photograph is taken, then in future, all will abandon sadhana and start worshipping the photograph. But the devotees were dogged in their determination, repeatedly entreating Yogi Raj. He finally agreed. All devotees, along with Gangadhar Babu, were elated and made arrangements for the photograph to be taken. By going near the camera, Yogi Raj, in a childish manner, started inquiring about its various mechanisms. Gangadhar Babu, being inspired, started explaining about the different parts of the camera. Eventually, at the time of taking photograph, Gangadhar Babu was faced with an acute problem. In the viewfinder, the image of Yogi Raj was not being reflected. He thought that there must be some defect in the camera, but on examination, it was found that the images of others were being reflected on the viewfinder. It was now that Gangadhar Babu understood the actual matter. He saw that Yogi Raj was smiling mildly. Gangadhar Babu prayed with folded hands now. kindly have mercy. Otherwise, the photograph cannot be taken and the desire of devotees cannot be fulfilled. Yogiraj now gently said, take the snap. It was now noticed that the image of Yogiraj was being reflected on the viewfinder. The photograph which millions of his devotees possess today is the one which Gangadhar De had snapped on that day. Excepting this, no other snap of Yogiraj had been taken. Chandramohan De, a neighbor of Yogiraj, was a young man who had passed his medical examination and returned home. One day, Chandramohan came and paid obeisance to Yogiraj and prayed for his blessings. He blessed him and inquired of him about the many facts of modern medical treatment. Chandramohan was a new doctor and his enthusiasm was endless. He explained various aspects of the developments in the medical science. Yogiraj desired to know what the definition of death was in medical science. Chandramohan explained what the definition of death was. Jocularly and administering a gentle smile, Yogiraj said, examine me and see, Chandramohan, whether I am alive or dead. Chandramohan examined and was amazed. There was no sign of life in the body. The heartbeat was also static. Chandramohan was speechless. Suddenly, Yogiraj banteringly stated, Chandramohan, you should then give me a death certificate. Chandramohan was even more nonplussed. He started thinking what to reply. Abruptly, an idea flashed across Chandramohan's mind. He said, I would have given you a death certificate, but you are still talking. A dead person is unable to talk. Yogiraj laughed and remarked, you are right. But remember, much remains to be learned beyond your modern medical science, where the latter cannot reach. But yogis can easily attain the quest for that knowledge. Shamacharan was assiduous and industrious. He inspired several social welfare services. It was through his endeavors and the cooperation of the then notable persons of Kashi like Ramakali Chaudhary, Girish Chandra De, Kashinath Biswas, etc., that the Bangilitola High School was established. Despite working for the whole day at office, performing the functions of a private tutor, and executing household responsibilities, he would remain engaged in various types of social welfare activities. Due to his industrious nature and firm determination, the austere practice of yoga sadhana in his sadhana life could not tire him. By existing within the family precincts, he set an example for mankind that practice of sadhana with strong determination can result in spiritual attainment. After the Bangalitola High School was established, Shamacharan became its founder, secretary, and remained so throughout his life. He desired that everyone should receive education and become well established in life. He undertook all sorts of endeavors for the development of the school. He was observant as to whether the pupils were receiving proper education and the properties of the school were being properly maintained. He would pay surprise visits to the school to observe whether the teachers were discharging their duties perfectly. In those days, female education was not in vogue, but he advocated the necessity of female education. So he set up a girls' school with the assistance of some eminent persons. His Highness, the Maharaja of Nepal, appointed him tutor on 24th March 1864 for the fourth prince, Narendra Krishna Shah alias Khala. Her Highness, the Queen of Nepal, again appointed him for the same job on 4th March 1866. Yogiraj had two sage-like sons, Tinkari Lahiri and Dukari Lahiri, and three daughters, Harimati, Harikamini, and Harimohini. Harikamini, the 16-year-old, married second daughter had come to her father's house. Suddenly, she afflicted with an attack of Asiatic cholera. Kashimani Devi requested Yogiraj to make some arrangements to save the daughter. He being present, how could she die? Yogiraj remained unperturbed, as though nothing had happened. Kashimani Devi repeatedly kept on entreating Yogiraj to save the daughter by any means. The great yogi, without speaking a word, gave the root of apamarg and 2.5 peppercorns and instructed, grind these two together and feed her. Kashimani Devi thought since her daughter was married, it would be better to administer medicine to her according to the doctor's advice. If not, then if something untoward happened, they would be reprimanded by the daughter's family of in-laws. Therefore, without giving the medicine as instructed by Yogiraj, she started administering the doctor's medicine to her daughter. But the daughter died the next day. On the evening, like other evenings, Yogiraj was explaining the Gita, and his most worthy devotee, Pandit Panchahan Bhattacharya Mahasaya, was reading the slokas of Gita. Many devotees were listening. At this moment, loud wails from the room above could be heard. This perturbed everyone present. When asked the reason for this, Yogiraj replied, the second daughter had expired. Therefore, everyone is crying. Perhaps the relatives and neighbors who will take her to the burning gut had come. Bhattacharya Mahasaya closed the Gita and said, let the explanation be stopped for today. Yogiraj solemnly expressed, let them do their task, you perform your task. The next day, Rajachandra Sanyal Mahasaya, brother-in-law of Yogiraj, came and asked him, does the misery that occurs to an ordinary person with the loss of dear one occur to you? Yogiraj smilingly, gently replied, everyone feels the misery, but there is a little difference in the case of a knowledgeable person. If a marble stone is struck on the firm ground, it leaps up and retreats. But if it is struck on a soft clay ground, the marble gets embedded in it. Similarly, misery cannot render blows to a knowledgeable person. Blows do afflict him, but it cannot create any impact on him. An ignorant person laments when afflicted. By maintaining a family existence like a water drop on a lotus leaf, this noble household yogi easily remained unaffected by all sorrows and afflictions. Gopal Chandra Bandopadhyaya, an eminent homeopath of Kashi, along with one of his friends, would visit Mahatma Trilinga Swami. Bandopadhyaya Mahasaya was the disciple of Yogiraj. One day, both friends requested Yogiraj to meet Trilinga Swamiji. In Kashi, Trilinga Swamiji was widely known. He earned a reputation of a living Shiva. The silent Swamiji would sit at his ashram at Panchaganga Ghat. Seeing Shamcharan along with Bandopadhyaya Mahasaya, Swamiji stood up, proceeded quickly towards him, and accorded him a warm embrace. After they paid homage to each other, they stood in silence for a few minutes. On observing the union of two noble souls, tears of devotion rolled down Bandopadhyaya Mahasaya. After this, they left for their respective destinations. The devotees present there were not familiar with Yogiraj. They had never seen Swamiji tender a loving embrace. On asking out of curiosity, the silent Swamiji wrote down his reply on a slate. For attaining that one, the ascetics have to abandon even their loincloth. But this Mahatma, by remaining within the family precincts, has attained that one. He desired that everyone should progress in the spiritual path by maintaining a family existence. If anyone expressed their desire to take sannyasa, he would make efforts to caution them from doing so, send them back home, and remark, "The life of a sannyasi is austere. If any error is committed by a householder, he can be forgiven, but a sannyasi has no reprieve. The garb of a sannyasi is the external manifestation of spirituality, but non-desirous of self-salvation, the quiet household sadhakas, unostentatious sadhana, has no external manifestation." Nevertheless, many of his disciples were anchorites also. Since he would impart Sanatana Dharma's intensely esoteric Kriya Yoga initiation to men of all castes, different types of criticisms were raised. With a gentle smile, he would reply to his critic, "I see ignobility in nobility. Again, nobility in ignobility. Fortunately, I have entered the true path. When I see humanity within a human, and if he wishes to be enlightened, then it is my responsibility to enlighten him." Yogiraj retired from service in September 1860. His monthly pension was fixed at 29 rupees, 4 annas and 6 pice. Being difficult to maintain his family with that paltry sum, he engaged himself as a private tutor for teaching the scriptures to Singh, son of Ishwari Narayan Singh, the king of Kashi. His tuition fee was fixed at a rate of 30 rupees per month. Every day, the king's boat would come to take Yogiraj to the Ramnagar palace on the other side of the Ganga. One day, as usual in the morning, Kashimani Devi was worshipping Shiva when Yogiraj arrived and stood in front of the door. Kashimani Devi pondered that as Yogiraj normally never came to that spot at that time, what could be the reason for his coming there suddenly that day? Kashimani Devi turned back and looked. Yogiraj smiled gently and in a specific tone stated to Kashimani Devi, "Look, the purpose of my advent has been completed. It is time for me to depart now. I shall be in mortal frame for another 6 months only and then depart. None of you should grieve over this. I am making only you aware of this. After my departure, keep my mortal frame in the room I stay, for I shall mark my re-advent. And if this is not possible, bury me in that room." The yogi had decided the day and time of his sublime departure and was preparing to dissolve his worldly activities. Nearly 3 months in advance, he declared this to a few of his advanced devotees. Gradually, the appointed day started approaching. A month before the completion of 6 months, he effected the origination of a carbuncle on his dorsal area. Using this carbuncle as a pretext, the yogi commenced arrangements for departure. Receiving the news, his eldest son, Tinkari Lahiri Mahasaya, who was employed in Delhi, shortly reached home. Hemachandra Sen, his devotee, an eminent physician of Calcutta Medical College, on receiving the news, came to Kashi and began treatment on Yogiraj. But no sign of recovery could be noticed. Hem Babu decided for an operation and begged the consent of Yogiraj. Yogiraj mildly smiled and stated, "It is better to stay within the rules of nature." The doctor understood that Yogiraj was not agreeable to an operation. Therefore, he abandoned the idea and cleaned and bandaged the wound. Yogiraj himself used to prepare neem oil and administer this for the various afflictions of his devotees. This oil was now applied on the wound of Yogiraj, but there was no alleviation of the carbuncle. Krishnaram, a Rajput Brahmin devotee, was perpetually serving Yogiraj and remained with him like a shadow. He served Yogiraj intently. Yogiraj was immensely appeased by the tireless efforts of Krishnaram. The day before the departure, he affectionately called Krishnaram and said, Krishnaram, I am well pleased by your service. Tell me what you want. You will get what you want. With tearful eyes, quivering voice, and with a mind steeped in devotion, Krishnaram replied, I have nothing to ask for. I have only one prayer, to obtain a place at your lotus feet. Yogiraj smiled gently and remarked, It will be so, Krishnaram. Krishnaram then lay prostrate at the feet of Yogiraj. Swami Pranabhananda was staying in the Udaipur then. Hearing about the final moment of his Gurudeva, he started making arrangements to reach Kasi soon. Suddenly, Pranabhananda saw that his Gurudeva, assuming a subtle form, appeared before him and said, Pranabhananda, there is no use for haste. I shall depart before you reach. Pranabhananda began crying. Yogiraj comforted him, saying, Why are you crying? Though the body departs, the essence of Sadguru remains. I am always present. Another devotee of Yogiraj, Panchkori Bandopadzhyay, was residing at Haridwar then. A few days before the departure of Yogiraj, Bandopadhyay Mahasaya saw the resplendent image of Yogiraj appear before him and say, Come to Kashi immediately. Bandopadhyay Mahasaya arrived at Kashi immediately and noticed his Gurudeva deciding to leave his mortal frame. Only a small amount of light would enter the room Yogiraj would inhabit, as it did not have sufficient windows and doors. The yogi was lying extremely indisposed in the afternoon, a day before his departure. His eldest son, Tinker Lahiri Mahasaya, was engaged in keeping a close watch upon his father from the parlor adjoining the room. Suddenly he noticed his father leave his bed, walk up to a bookcase fixed on the wall of the room, go through some books, eventually walk back to the bed in a healthy and able manner and lie down. Yogiraj seated himself in Padmasana, looking towards his tearful devotees. He remarked, The time for my departure has arrived. Do not grieve. Though the mortal body disappears, the essence of Sadguru remains. I am always with you. At the auspicious junction of Mahastami and Mahanavami, sitting on the same bed, Yogiraj affected his sublime departure in Mahasamadhi. It was 5:25 p.m., 27th September 1895, Friday. So this is about Master Lahiri Mahasaya. The source of this content is taken from Purana Purusha, Yogiraj Sri Shyama Charan Lahiri. And the book was written by Dr. Ashok Kumar Chatterjee. And this content now we read from the book Gurus of India, which is a collection of gurus from India, which is collected and printed by Spiritual India team. So such a wonderful messages that we can get listening to such wonderful masters who lived. Lot of things that we can learn, starting from the fact that he said, don't become a sannyasi. Be as a family man and use your time. Do not waste your time. Do not waste your time in gossips. Do not waste your time in anything, but utilize effectively your time, and one lifetime is enough to attain spiritual oneness. And he used to use all his night sitting and doing sadhana. So it's the same day, 24 hours that everyone in this world had. And here we have an example where a normal family man have attained enlightenment and spiritual oneness with his practice, living a normal life as an employee, taking care of the family, and with all his financial issues, even after retirement, he continued to work, being such a highly spiritual master to make his ends meet. And there is also this example of the doctor, wherein he checks his body and he finds that he can be certified medically dead, but indeed he is not. So he even says that what a yogi can attain is beyond that which science can explain. And then the story about the photograph. So the photo that we see of Lahiri Mahasaya, it's such a funny instance how this is shared in the book. And indeed, we can read these stories even in autobiography of Yogi. And the other thing he speaks is about being a strict vegetarian. And also, very clearly, he specifies about the idol worship. There is nothing in the idol worship. It is about connecting to the inner God that is within each one of us. And even his departure and the message he had given to so many people, right? Do not cry. Even when his daughter left his physical body, the body was lying. Basically, the whole family was busy in the final journey for the daughter, while he was there with his devotees and few others going through Gita. And then he says, let them do their task and let us do our task. Imagine the state of this wonderful master. Just reading, we can experience, we can feel how it would have been being with him and to all his devotees. And then he speaks about death when one of the persons, his brother-in-law, had asked him, does the misery, that occur to an ordinary person with the loss of a dear ones, does it happen also to him? Then he explains about, there is misery, but it does not affect as any other normal person. And he speaks about the death. Do not grieve. Do not grieve. So, there are so many messages in this wonderful journey of Lahiri Mahasaya. There are millions of people in this world who are continuously getting guidance and getting inspired to connect to their spiritual nature within themselves, following Kriya Yoga, following the messages from Lahiri Mahasaya and Mahavatar Babaji as well. So this is about Lahiri Mahasaya Masters. Anyone would like to share? Kindly go ahead and mute yourself. Yes, Sharda Garu.
Namaste, sir, and thank you so much. This about the great masters you are reading from the book, the gurus. Yes, I know a little bit, as everyone knows about the autobiography of a yogi. So we meet all these masters in that book. But the past, from the childhood, it is not mentioned in that book. But I'm glad and happy to know about the great master from the childhood days. And and what I resonate with is, sir, about the idol worship. And he is not he won't encourage us to have a photograph of him to any devotees or his followers. The practical experience I got from Mahavatar Babaji is the initial days when Mahavatar Babaji got connected with me. The first advice he suggested me is not to get any photograph of him. So okay, till now, till date, I don't have a photograph of Mahavatar Babaji at my home. No, so he didn't suggested me, and also, and when one of the master, one of the friend, so she shared a unique photograph of Mahavatar Babaji on my birthday. So I felt happy, as the photo is very unique and very beautiful. So she told me that it is on spiritual in some Instagram, and gave me Instagram address. And the next moment I received a message from Mahavatar Babaji is, don't check these photographs and don't go on this Instagram. So daily, don't go and check these photos, because you ultimately you go into that worship mode. You shouldn't. So all the masters are equal. So I can be in any form. I'm not in this form. Mahavatar Babaji is not as having a body and sitting under a tree meditating. So this is not my form. I could be in any form, like a tree, a bird, a person, or a stone, or in a mountain. So any form I could. So all masters, they are from the one consciousness. So treat as a light. So treat every master as a light. So light means is a wisdom. So always gain wisdom from the masters, but don't worship me. So this is a strong suggestion. So I never looked up into the Instagram. I didn't check till now. And sometimes maybe if he said, whenever the messages pop, if you want to see any message, look at the message or wisdom, not for the photographs. So this was one experience. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharada Garu, for sharing this continued information in line with what we just read. Wonderful to also listen what Babaji had shared to you. Beautiful. Yes, friends, anyone else? Okay, then. So we end today's evening session. Take all the inspirations from listening to the life journey of these masters. We can only get inspired so that we connect to our own inner light. There is the same time that these masters had in their lifetimes, the same amount of time we also have in our lifetimes. Indeed, our life is much easier. We have so many comforts, we have so much of abundance in many ways. So we have to get inspired when we listen to these masters' journey, so that we also walk in the path that is shared by these masters. Thanks a lot. I wish you all a wonderful day or evening, and we connect back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Germany time, for a meditation and wisdom sharing. Namaste.
Namaste, Ram.
Namaste, Malati ji. Namaste.